Yeah, but I can say for the owners of the chemist, they were mysteriously offensive in terms of what they would say and what they would think requires a justification. And and I realized how childish it is. If you see from the viewpoint of say you're a random audience. You could be someone has been a friend of mine for years, but just you weren't part of the experience with this company that I was. So from my point of view, what I'm saying is, well, it is reactionist in a sense. It's reactionist and you would have to get the sentiment behind what's written, which is why much of it's absurd. But there are what I'm prepared to go. There's alluding to what I'm, prepared to discuss in a courtroom about, and I think you find without a witness or someone to know what dealing with them was like, you find yourself going slightly mad, and then you know that going mad was what they had in mind. So you have to not go mad because that's what they consider to be their victory, because of these antipsychotic prices. So what's the difference? If you say I had what my mum considered asthma as a kid, but I discovered, and I had like a pointy rib cage during my teens in church. I couldn't get a flat chest. But the amount I'm capable of smoking, and I don't have asthma, it would just be impossible for me to smoke as much as I smoke, and I do need to quit. But there was a time in my just the last year of my teens by name, the year I was of my 19th year on Earth, 2003, and I got the flat chest and started to get a bit more muscly, less scrawny, and it actually involved for me thinking I didn't have to spark arguments with family members. I I I would look for religious proselytizers online and say, well, okay, are you extending your forum's membership invitation to a non-believer? And if they were, then I would join and argue with them, and working out a basic framework for my opposition to so much of Christianity. It's if there's really one ad for atheism, it's the statement, we just go one God further, and that's a powerful statement because religionists are always well, to be convinced that their faith is the true one, the one true religion, is a contest that atheism plays no part in, because any religious adherent is already an atheist still in relation to every other religious belief system. So by what criteria or types of judgments have you made that makes this religion true for you as distinct from, why not believe this religion here or this religion here? And you watch how they'll try and explain it. So, yeah, atheism was really the default, and atheism is still promoted more by a believer. They're promoting that every other one of the world's religions, except for their own, is untrue. So it's a question of consistency then, because what prompted them to be, say, Christian instead of Islam, and that's where they have a hard time. And that's where you wind up getting into, you wind up forming opinions like, well, maybe you thought maybe there was a job opportunity that they had for you in mind that you really wanted, or maybe you thought that the converter was sexy. This, that, and the other. The interesting story about the man Gary Bradford, who was our youth pastor in the 90s, was that he would encourage us. He would say, I encourage you to talk with unbelievers, but don't talk to people who have chosen other religions. And I thought, whoa, like, aren't they at the time I was thinking, aren't they the ones that are really that need our help more? Like, I mean, they're already involved in a religion. It's just the wrong one. Surely they would need us to help them more. But then I had to think about why he would say what he said. And he now is no longer a Uniting Church youth pastor. He has left and become a Muslim. So for a man who once gave that advice to young people, he's now preaching Islam. And I don't know why. I thought Christianity would be his best shot at a monotheism, or an Abrahamic faith, because he has a bowl full of jelly semblance aesthetically to Santa Claus. So, he could flaunt that. He could shake his tits and remind kids of Santa. But I'm not sure really where the Muslims stand on Christmas. But yeah, so errors in you wind up, if you cross-examine, just say you're in a religion and you cross-examine it with the propositions and statements of another religion, and your own religion takes hits because you have to conclude, well, that's just as believable as my religion. And so that's why I think Gary would say what he would say. So, yeah, Yabba Dabba Rabbi Hillel's a bub. For I care not what they do. I think, so yeah, so these Freemasons then are keeping in secret, and they're not bringing their apologists out to enter into debates. Like, I'd like them to debate Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Dan Barker. I'd love to see the Freemasons send out what's going on conversely is, well, they've got a pyramid scheme entrance policy where you have to convince them that you have your whole heart invested in it. That's a bit like how the church... Can you imagine the church that Charles Manson tried to start, and how... So, you put your heart in it first. Oh, kill Sharon Tate. Like, if you create a dynamic where the emotional loyalty is so strong that no matter what's said in terms of propositional statements, you have to abide by in following them, or you're not a true believer. So what they'll always have over you, to hold over your head, is, well, you must not be true. You must not be true. And you said you were going to be true. Not it's like, it's a bit like if this country was to not put out not let you see the Human Rights Act unless you swore to serve in the military or something like that. Yeah. We need to see your whole heart is invested in this country. If you sign up for military service, you can read the Human Rights Act. That'd be totalitarian, fascist. But yeah, what these Freemasons are doing, I think, is they're kicking back and calculating what, on a statistical average kind of basis, what propositions amongst the world religions seem to work the most, and they adopt the ones that work the most. The golden rule seems to be caked into their heads to the point that they're mad about it, and they're mad about thinking of it as a tool to attaining someone's deeply hidden secrets. So here's the thing you always get about them, just due to tendencies of reciprocation, is that since they're a secret church, if Roger Toll or Gary Cairns are violating your privacy to find out what the dirt, for instance, is on you, I want the dirt on you. What they'll come up with, it's that idea that you're constantly hiding certain secrets from them. It's not that they will respect the Privacy Act. because and in fact what I think they've done is abused the Privacy Act and religious freedom statutes in the Rights Charter as well, because because they know this, then get on one of their wrong side of their wrong sides, and you're hiding some deep secret. Yeah, my secret is that I'm the leader of a church that's it's trans quantum. It's the next thing after quantum. You won't be able to detect the church that I've started until you have technology that is beyond subatomic, beyond up and down quarks, and positron electron pairs, and antimatter. Okay, I grew up watching Star Trek, and they taught me well. And my church is more secret than yours will ever be. So, no, so, yeah, their bluff is pathetic, and the level of how much time they will spend trying to siphon some sort of, or detect some sort of leverageable case against you. I already know what the two owners of the Chemist and Leverage feels like during a direct work shifts. I don't. So, like it's more comfortable at home, so to contend with them and those sorts of tricks. But yeah, they're the ones actually playing heroes. I think it's like, yeah, can you imagine a religion where you go, well, okay, so the Hindus, most popular belief that works for the majority is this. For the Amish, it's this. For this denomination of Christianity, it's this. For the Catholics, it's this. And they sort of do a statistical average summary of and so that makes them when they come forward with their teachings at face seem to be quite enlightened. But they're still in the 16th century. They're like the excitement of 16th century, like Mark Twain, like that episode of Star Trek with Mark Twain, where he gets to go on the Enterprise, and he uses the experience as inspiration for future books. But if the problem with being a hero, in the way that heroes, I understand heroic statements to be mocked, it has absolutely nothing to do with a situation where you see someone on the other side of the road from your house and they're bleeding at the knee, so you quickly jog up to them and say, Mr. or Mrs., do you require me to call the ambulance for you? Can I be of assistance? It's not that sort of thing. It's where there's some sort of situation, but your comprehension of the situation makes your heroic efforts a phenomenon that complicates or makes the situation worse. And so that's why I've understood certain policemen to say, don't be a fucking hero. And that's what I understand. Religious companies can stand to be told that same message. It's not what these great artists have meant. It's not what Lennon and Bowie have meant by hero. So But it is something that the Freemasons, um, you know, after they emerge from their secrecy into the world of the living, um, they are quite keen to indeed be too stupid to call themselves evil, so they will call themselves heroes. And that's Roger Tall and Gary Cairns. Good day, motherfucker. It's definitely, I'll say, like to call some of this, I like to challenge, bring up the idea of being a supporter of simultaneously the don't be a hero credo, but at the same time an admirer of the contextual use of the word hero by writers like John Lennon in Working Class Hero, which was also covered by Bowie and covered by Manson. And the song Heroes itself by Bowie. And what I think is that, if you're the only one around and someone on the other side of the road has fallen, has collapsed, or is bleeding from the leg, and they seem to be helpless, then approaching to see if you can't phone a nurse and render assistance. That's obviously not a problem, but there are situations where are otherwise otherwise being handled and by people trained and qualified, and there are specific policies involved, and you have and then the expression, well, don't be a hero, is valid. And it was former Christian mentor who had said, as long as you're out there being a hero. But I have disagreements with her now concerning what value Christianity has for Earth. And I've looked into her hermeneutics, closed systems of thought, where, and this is the thing about this particular mentor, is if you say, and are you prepared to, is there anything that could possibly challenge you to change your mind about this or that belief? And she'll go, because despite her Jesus saying not to take an oath to of any kind, she'll represent the sort of a priori dedication that is equivalent to an oath swearer, but in relation to the structure of belief metaphysics. So Freemasons find, I think, from the two I've encountered, introducing themselves as heroes. I like a line from a song, which is too stupid to call themselves evil, so they call themselves heroes. And it makes me think of their scammy ways. Gary, the co-founder of Capital Chemist, would say about the Lake Krakenbach staff conference, he would say that all the masks come off at the conference, and then I get to a conference, and what was scheduled was like some seminars, then partying and art. People, Gary himself painting I think the Freemasons have a white star is quite a powerful symbol to to the Masons in the Freemason church. So he'd paint a white star in one eye and kiss makeup and sing, Hey Jude to his wife Judy in front of everyone, and I was made for loving you, baby. And I'm not the only one in my circle of close ties who concur that Kiss are quite a gay band. You might say to me, well, you were very, Kiss were out selling greatest hits albums while you were cuddling a Cabbage Patch, whatever. But it's still, I've been examining 80s rock more lately, and I still hold to that. Like, their lyrics weren't very impressive. So yeah, hero would be, from in the way Gary uses it, a concealing term as well, because so the masks come off when they're at the staff conference, and these two are clocking. The co-founders are into clocking people into psych wards when the masks are on and they're working. So if the masks come off and the conference is about dancing around and getting into art, then they more or less teach you just right then and there that the marginalization of creative thinkers, and to try to almost as a priest converts someone to a religion, to try to convert someone to admitting that you have a particular mental illness. And I even think that admit that humanity has fallen, and that we need Christ, is sort of like a template, underlining term for these statements to be sprung off on top of, like, it's Calvary is certainly into that. Which of course means they hope you make this admission and agree to their little conversion attempts. Like, but for me, I've heard all this sort of talk before. You're trying to undermine me in a principalitarian way, into like saying that I'm no longer relevant to the Human Rights Act because there's a Mental Health Act. So I'm not human. I have no right to move, to expression, to health. Problems there, and to me it's too reminiscent of how the religious try to convert. And I think shame on them, because they will forcefully inject drugs that they know can have bad side effects, but without discussing the side effects. And furthermore, they know that the placebo effect has in principle proven something about the human imagination. I think it's like there'll still be now the grade 7 kid this week who goes and buys some Glad wrapped up tea leaves under the pretense that he just bought $20 worth of marijuana, and go elsewhere and smoke some bushels tea leaves comes back and tells the 10th grader that he got so stoned and had an amazing weekend next week. That'll happen, and that's the placebo effect. And since it's the placebo effect, I think it warrants further study in amongst the scientists, not extorting it amongst the patients. That, I think, is how are you to guarantee in that situation that you have done no harm in accordance with the teachings of Hippocrates. But that's how the policies prove they work. Hello, I'm Luke Benton. Hang on. Hi, sorry. My name is Luke Benton, and my three favorite artists in throughout history are David Bowie, Marilyn Manson, and Jonathan Davis. Jonathan Davis of Korn. And I'm just assembling a videolog video as we speak, and I'm just trying to remember what it was I wanted to address. Oh yeah, the concept of likeness in Australian culture, like where is where do you establish boundaries on it? I think the view that other countries have of us historically is like a prisoner settlement, where, you know, there was no choice for the Caucasians from the United Kingdom for some of them anyway, to come here. So then they come here, and then there's enslavement of the Aborigines, which, you know, perhaps that idea came to them from the Christian scriptures. I'm sure these people still read the Sermon on the Mount, but you know, how many religious people want to have a talk to me about Isaiah 45:7? Anyway, likeness. I think a lot about selection. Not in the evolutionary sense, but you know, the phenomenon of guilt by association is overstated so much that it can be ridiculous. Like I would not consider Adolf Hitler to have been a man who personally embraced Friedrich Nietzsche, but I know he requested to visit Nietzsche's house, and I think if you were to assess the Triumph of the Will speeches, which I haven't watched in completion yet, I had a copy of them. I'm sure if I still do, but Hitler had come to incorporate statements about willpower into his public address. And okay, let's say perhaps that occurred after he acquainted himself with Friedrich Nietzsche's house, and to some extent Friedrich Nietzsche's work. Now, if you read Mein Kampf, there's a phenomenon too which I won't get into in this recording, but Mao, Pol Pot, Stalin, and Hitler are all like the tragedies of the 20th century. The most destructive totalitarian dictators get blamed on atheism, which, you know, right away it's a jeer from one religious group that was personally. It's weird, like I'm not trying to say atheism is invincible, and I'm not trying to say that every atheist has been a morally perfect, good person. I do like the statements like left to themselves. Good people will do good things. Bad people will do bad things. But if you want a good person to do bad things, make them religious. And, you know, I'll snore if a religious person asks why is that, and because they will not have read their Bible or their holy book. But when you think of likeness, like there are absurd examples. So, yeah, and Hitler's diary journal, Mein Kampf. There are statements by Hitler where he's saying, by fighting off the Jews, I am convinced that I am acting as an agent of the Creator. By fighting off the Jews, I believe I am doing the Lord's work. and so he had a view that it was a sort of a Christian type of service that he was doing. He was achieving by the extermination of Jewish people. And enough time. And that's something, if you request to read Mein Kampf, and the proof will be there. What happens though is later in Hitler starts to get more drive and power, and all I think he did was he saw some likeness in Nietzsche's writings on the will and willpower, and so you read about him growing in so much strength that the church started to fearfully want to, like, not to his face say that they were fucking off, but secretly were, creating hideouts for Jewish people to run to and hide. And you hear of those sort of stories. And so what you could say is that he misappropriated. I would argue that he misappropriates Nietzsche. Because Nietzsche's quite famous for the statement, "God is dead." And even after visiting Nietzsche's house and adopting some ideas from Nietzsche, Hitler's still having embossed belt buckles with the words "Gott mit uns," meaning God is with us, still printed on his soldiers' belt buckles. So, likeness and who you choose, and so you can just talk a certain way here in Australia, and they will say, "Oh, aren't you just like so and so?" And that guilt by association phenomenon is quite extensive. But like, if in a sense where everyone's like everyone, I could say I could go. You could say to me, I just went to the bathroom, sat down, and took a shit, and I could say, don't you know that, like, within generally 8 to 12 hours after a comprehensive meal, Adolf Hitler himself would drop trowel and sit on a toilet and have a shit? Like, are you trying to be like Adolf Hitler, or is it just the way you are by nature? Like, I think we can select, and it's something that the contrast of the idea that Marilyn Manson proved with his name, and it's beyond the initial mid 90s arguments where he would say, that the media gives serial killers and glamorous dancers and actors the same sort of celebrity status, and that being disgusting, because there are people who just haven't comprehended what it means to earn the respect of their fellow man, and they'll get this thanks to the way the media is structured. They'll get the same sort of story portrayal as someone who has been on a shooting spree. So with likeness, you can choose. So like, I liked Hitler's term, the Christian poison, and that's not because I'm out to persecute Christians. I invite them to debates. There's a lot of nice ideas in the Bible. It's just that there are what's not happening is that I don't think there's enough conversational pressure in response to injunctions that can't be construed or redefined or defended from a distance of mysticism or as but absolutely injunctions on how to behave. And what I think gets taken for granted, and I noticed this in church, is that if an individual spends a lot of time detached, it's good. Being a loner is good in so many ways, but I'm not siding with the psychological argument that how someone talks about a heavenly Father in the Bible is you know, Rorschach um, Rorschach language, where they are seeping, leaking secret insights into the relationship between themselves and their Father. But to a person on their own, because the Heavenly Father in the Bible is a God with certain powers that and who is not human. But if you have a preacher saying this is God's word, this is God's word, it'll take and reduce statements like, love thy neighbor, or treat others as you would have them treat you, and they're brought to the same level as if a woman is not found to be a virgin on her wedding day, then dump her on her father's doorstep. Or if a man rapes an unpledged virgin, so back then there were, a woman could be pledged to be married to someone. So if a virgin is targeted or found, or they coincidentally wind up together in the same room together, and the man rapes her, he has to pay the father 50 shekels, and then he has to marry her, because now she would not be, were she to go on pledged to someone. It's like if you rip the seal off a box you've ordered from eBay, and you're not sure if the goods have been damaged or not. Yeah. It's that, so these sorts of ideas, if someone doesn't have an engaging relationship with persons of authority around them, where moral theory is discussed, and yeah, I side with the Sam Harris principle that people are there are things that people do and are going on to do, pretty much only because they have been brought to think that a God has willed that they should act a certain way in his holy book. And which is to say, was this injunction removed from your holy book, then these behaviors wouldn't have been thought of. Imagine if at the moment that was still a very practiced rule. So you're at a party for someone's wedding, and they drive off in the it says just married at the back of the car, and then with 6 hours later the woman's body is dumped on the father's doorstep, and it's on the news every, this week we had 4 in the north side of Canberra. We had 4 just married brides dumped on their father's doorstep. 17 from South Canberra. If that was still going on, and political leaders were saying, the Bible is so important, if you want to, court etiquette is such that we hold up and we place our hand on this Bible, or else how else do we comprehend true justice? yeah, other human examples are needed, but because in order for a person to have a balanced appreciation for rights. But I think because of what supernatural claims, to me they're like salesmen that haven't received their product yet, and I find them to be an absurdity, because it's not that I don't know that it's not a comprehension problem with me. It's that they don't know what they're selling with the afterlife. So today I'd like to close by saying I promote in electronic music Maxi Jazz's work with Faithless, Faith No More in alternative rock. Maxi Jazz was a big supporter of Dido. Dido does quite a lot of singing in early albums by Faithless prior to her. I think. It seems almost that the sample of her. Oh no, yeah, I think that was her. It's either her first or second solo album that was sampled by Eminem in Stand. But Faithless are excellent. And yeah, essentially, I think a lot of dangerous behavior and a lot of crime is. And then you've got this mainstream status quo. Oh, where's their common sense? Where's their common sense? Well, that's what the supernatural is antithetical to. The supernatural has nothing to do with common sense. What you've got this this Bible talking about treasures awaiting us up in heaven. And I'm not against people being religious. I'm against offenses and errancy being practiced over and over, because the antagonist thinks that they're religiously called to do so, but they call it some sort of profession. The virtual imposition of their religious babble, disguised as a profession.